Hey guys, welcome back. I am here with a very, very special individual, Mr. Abdel Salam. He's a choreographer and the artistic director of Forces of Nature Dance Theater. You know who they are. Everybody knows who they are. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Ashani. It's my pleasure.
It's good to have you here.
Yep.
You guys have been going on now for 31 years, almost 32 years. When you started this company, what was kind of your mission or your purpose behind starting your company?
I was fascinated initially with a variety of forms of dance in a number of genres. My dance mother, Joan Miller at Lehman College, exposed us to Limon and ballet and Horton and East Indian dance and postmodern, and Chuck Davis was on faculty, and Juan Antonio, Louis Falco, people from the San Sardo School, and Louis. I think that the impetus to choreograph came from her taking me to see a number of different concerts in 1970, I believe, and when we came back, many of the students were talking about the performers, and I was sitting up in the third balcony, and I think Ailey was doing something like choral dances, and everybody was raving about the agility and the technique of the dancers. And when she asked me to give what my assessment was, I was looking at the lighting, the staging, the costumes,
right.
you know, and all of the art, if you will, that was impressing me. And I remember saying to the class, I think I can do this. And of course, everybody laughed.
Of course.
And so here we are, my God, 40 some odd years later, you know, and I attribute, of course, that initial vision to her. She was a socio-political activist who used dance and the arts in order to make statements of what she felt was healing for society. Chuck Davis, of course, was an amazing diaspora and cultural nationalist who used vernacular dance and movement, again, to make statements that he thought would be important in the healing of us as an African-American people.
Yes.
So, but probably by melding those two visions together, the contemporary dance world, my desire to make socio-political statements and ultimately ecological and environmental statements that could stimulate people to live a life that's more in harmony with the ecosystems of our planet, along with our issues and problems as a people.
Right.
Those were things that ultimately somewhere I fused the two of them together, and then the impetus for my choreographic vision began.
I love that. So Earth Rights is something that stood out to me when I went to your website and was kind of doing my research. Tell me about what Earth Rights is and why you started it.
Earth Rights is a division of the work. You know, it's kind of like something that we refer to in the company as one of the living books of the material. I was reading a famous Egyptologist by the name of Gerald Massey when I was the Minister of Culture in the Harlem Institute for Egyptological Research. And this was back in '73. And one of Massey's books, A Natural Genesis, talked about everything evolving from the forces of nature. That nature was our first teacher, whether it was celestial nature in terms of the sun, moon, and star, or the systems and ecological forces that we see within the planet, and the terrestrial forms of life that we see on the planet, that we learned most of our initial lessons about life, society, being, by studying the forces of nature. And I said to myself, wow, if I'm looking for a ways and means to talk about any and everything that I wanted to talk about,
right.
You know, there we go, the forces of nature. So Earth Rights is an evolution of that philosophy. Many of the earlier works that I did focused on environment. I can't call myself an ecologist because I'm not that scientifically inclined. But the environment was something that certainly impressed me when I also took a look at African spiritual traditions.
Yes.
And religions and a variety of things that existed within those societies. I saw that there was a direct link between their honoring and worship of nature, you know, and how they formulated the rites, rituals, and raison d'être, if you will, you know, of you know, their reason for being, that came out of their respect for nature. And so this was something that I tried to do, and have been attempting to do, a journey that I've been on for my entire life, is to take the things that I am moved by, impressed with, stimulated by within nature, and use those elements as an impetus to choreograph, and hopefully to stimulate conversation amongst the viewers and people, my audience that comes, so that people ask certain questions. Maybe there's never answers. Maybe it's only questions that, you know, that we ask ourselves, to ultimately improve the quality of life and understand why we're here.
Another important part of your work is connecting with the youth and working in the schools and arts organizations to kind of open their minds, educate them, empower them. Why was it important for you to do work that directly works with the youth?
I'm a baby boomer, you know, and I was part of that African-American generation of young men that initially were to be written off. If you take a look at the environment that I came out of, I remember that, you know, drugs came into the elementary schools, you know, in the late 50s and 60s. Harlem was, at the time, in a downward spiral. And so the social-political content and the variety of movements that took place within the Harlem community were things that, as a young teenager, I was impacted by.
Right.
You know, a number of different movements, the mindsets that talked about what could we do in order to heal ourselves and at the same time empower ourselves. And so at Lehman College, you know, I was fortunate to meet a number of teachers that empowered me and told me that whatever I did with my life, whether it was the arts or any kind of a job that I had, that I should focus on how do I use that in order to improve the quality of life of our people. Young people, which at one point in my life I was a young person,
Right.
are in great need of some degree of guidance, a foundation, and someone that can kind of, if you will, be what we call in our circle a semsu or a shamsut, you know, someone that can help lead, you know, lead them, help them to discover the blessings and the demons of their ego, find out why they're here, figure out where they're going, and also have a respect for the past and the present, understanding that if you understand the past and the present, that will take you further into the future.
Yes.
My wife says to me all the time that I spend so much, rather than talking about my work and the things that I've done, I spend so much time in the underpinnings and the philosophy of what it is.
Right.
But you know, and that I should use these venues and these opportunities to talk about the things that I have done.
Right.
But I find that it is the reason why. It is the reasons and the things that have stimulated me, you know, that have greatest impact on my being. I mean, I worked in model cities. I worked for the Harlem Youth Federation.
Right.
I worked for with the Cathedral of St. John the Divine in their youth programs and the Manhattan Valley Youth Program. So working with young people, empowering young people, was something that's always been a part of my being. But my first choreographic ventures came through the Artists in the Schools program in 1973, where I was traveling around with Chuck Davis as his assistant. And I had to actually go in sometimes into school environments and stay for 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, you know, 2 months, and choreograph on a body of young people and search for ways and means to communicate simple ideas that would stimulate, you know, their sense of empowerment, their growth and development.
Right.
So my desire to choreograph came out of actually working with young people.
So that connection was there from the
That connection was there
beginning.
from the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it just grew as your company grew.
Right.
You maintained that connection. Even as you guys toured all over the country and all over the world, you still kept that going.
Absolutely.
So I know you guys have a bunch of performances and things coming up. Can you quickly, before we close, tell me like 1 or 2 things that are coming up that we can hopefully go and support and watch and experience the company?
Sure. December is always a very busy month for us. We have 2 performances at Riverside Theater at Riverside Church on the 7th and 8th of December. Then we are a permanent fixture in the fall winter solstice at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine Divine, where we were in residence for 23 years. We're now in residence at St. Martin's Church in Harlem. So that's the 13th, 14th, and 15th, 4 performances. We are at El Museo de Barrio, I can't roll my R's, on the 20th, doing a cultural/Kwanzaa event. And then we have our annual event, which is now 31 years old, that's housed in the Apollo. It's now at the Apollo Theater, but our Regeneration Night Kwanzaa celebration that's on December 28th at the Apollo.
Wonderful.
Tickets are available for all of that. And then next year we go to Washington for the IABD conference, and then I take them down south for a minute. And I'm working on a James Brown project with Otis to lead the Apollo, so I'm kind of excited about that.
That's incredible. Amazing. So they can learn more about you and Forces of Nature Dance Theater at forcesofnature.org.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is Abdel Salam, you guys.
And I just want to say this is my wife and my daughter's birthday today. My daughter was born on the same day my wife was. She's standing right over there. One of the most incredible dancers in the world, Diane Harvey Salam. And so happy birthday, baby. I love you.
Yay. Thank you so much for tuning into our show. Learn more at InsideNYCDance.com and connect with us on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube at Inside NYC Dance. See you next time.